Vos émissions préférées, elles sont toutes sur Radio Grand Lac.
Your English Weekly. Your English Weekly. La chronique 100% en anglais de Radio Grand Lac avec Sinead.
Hello, hello, and welcome back. Bonjour, chers auditeurs, et bienvenue à Your English Weekly sur le 92.1 FM, l'émission qui vous présente le meilleur de la langue, de la culture et du divertissement en anglais. Je suis votre animatrice Sinead et je suis ravie d'être ici avec vous aujourd'hui. Vous pouvez me trouver à Your English Workshop à Aix-les-Bains ou le Ravoire. Et n'oubliez pas, nos stages d'enfants pour primaire et collège pour mois d'avril sont ouvertes avec le thème Harry Potter, Beatrix Potter, excuse me. Et puis, bien sûr, il y a des stages cet été dans le sud ou avec le CNVA cet été. L'épisode aujourd'hui est de niveau A2 B1 avec un contenu très passionnant, n'est-ce pas, Tim? And tout ce qu'il vous faut pour améliorer votre anglais. Vous pouvez réécouter cette émission sur YouTube. Good afternoon, lovely listeners, and welcome to Your English Weekly on 92.1 here in Aix-les-Bains, the show that brings you the best of the English language between culture and entertainment. Hi, Tim. How are you today?
I'm very happy. I'm enjoying this lovely weather.
Ah, I know. Isn't it nice? It's nice to see the sun back again. So tell me, Tim, what level is your
It's on
little talk?
B1, B2.
B1, B2? Okay. And what are you going to talk to us today about?
Derry in Northern Ireland, actually.
Ooh, oh, you know I have a niece from Derry.
No, I didn't. You have a niece? Wow.
Yeah,
Derry.
my niece is from Derry.
Oh.
Now, some people say Derry and other people say Londonderry.
Ah, yes.
So if you are a unionist, you would probably say Londonderry,
Okay.
because you're in with the English.
Right.
And if you are more of a nationalist, you would probably say Derry.
Aha, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, there you are. And my niece comes just from that border. I don't know if you heard, but actually I'll talk about her next week, listeners, just so you can stay tuned for that. About Lyra McKee. Did you ever hear of Lyra McKee?
No, sorry. It doesn't ring a bell. What's this?
Lyra McKee was a journalist. But
Right.
we'll talk about her
Okay,
next
okay.
week. And I'm going to talk about, do you have any idea?
London, I think.
Yeah.
No? Where?
I'm going to talk about the Tate Museum because
okay.
I visited London this weekend for a
good.
quick visit to my niece, who is actually from Derry.
Ah.
Okay, so Tim, tell us about Derry.
So, I've heard it's a great place to visit before.
And what are some of our listeners going to hear? What are some of the vocabulary they're going to hear today?
Walled.
Okay, so you're talking about walled, like
city.
a walled city.
Walled city.
Okay, so fortifié, I think, huh? Okay.
Can walk along.
So you se balader au long de?
The walkway.
Un chemin?
A square, as in a street. A street and square.
A square being a place. A place, okay.
An outdoor stage.
So une scène extérieure.
To take place, where concerts take place, for example.
Avoir lieu.
Stained glass windows.
Okay, stained glass windows. That's not very something we hear a lot about. So in vitrail, like in a church, a stained glass window.
Mural.
That's where you get. Now, you've got the wall, of course, and then you've got what they call the painted walls, often done by street artists, etc. Yes, and in Derry there are a few.
Neighbourhood.
In quartier.
A bridge.
Un pont.
And also filming locations.
Donc, un lieu de tournage. Okay, so tell us now about Derry.
So apart from being the second biggest city in Northern Ireland, I was reading it had a lot to offer. It was it's the only fortified city in Ireland. Completely
really?
fortified, yeah.
Okay.
So that's very interesting. And you have apparently the walls are 20 feet high, and you can walk along the top, along the walkway.
Okay, nice.
And get a good view of the city. As well, after you've discovered the walls, walked around the city, you can head to the craft village, which is in the old centre of Derry.
And what century does this happen?
The walls were built in 1633.
Okay.
Whereas this craft village you go to, you'll see old houses from the Georgian houses from 18th century.
Okay, nice.
But there's a nice square there. There's also an outdoor stage where concerts take place, and it's just apparently a pretty place to visit. And then on top of that, there's the St. Colum's, I believe that's a cathedral, which was completed in 1633 and constructed from the same stone as the city walls. And also the Guildhall, which had a huge restoration back in 2013. About 10 million was pumped into it.
Okay.
And has incredible stained glass windows.
So the restoration is restoring, when you restore something back to its original state. Okay.
So that's just a small taste of what to do in the city, and I haven't even mentioned about the Bogside murals. That's where we see all the paintings from
on the walls between the IRA and I think that between the Unionists and the Nationalists during the Troubles.
Yes.
For information, listeners, the Troubles was another term that they've made to talk about moments that were difficult during the 60s, 70s, 80s.
30 years, wasn't it?
Yeah, over 30 years with the IRA.
Yes, right. And there's a peace bridge which was built there too between Waterside and the Cityside communities. And that was between the Nationals and the, what you were talking about earlier. Unionists, yeah.
Yeah, between the Unionists and the Nationals. Yes, exactly.
And of course, I haven't even got to mention the beautiful countryside to explore.
Wow. It is absolutely beautiful. It is very beautiful to visit, yeah.
What's the Causeway Coast like?
Oh, well, the Causeway Coast, I was there at Christmas, so I really enjoyed it. It's just stunning. It's everywhere you go, you can turn along the Causeway Coast. You've got the giant causeway, which is a national place to visit, which is UNESCO, and of course you can see the different stones that are there that don't exist anywhere else in the world.
Wow.
Yeah, very, very nice. You caught me on hold there because I can't remember everything.
So there's the Game of Thrones filming location.
Yes, exactly. That's where they filmed the Game of Thrones and the Bushmills. You can go along Bushmills and along all this coast, the Arman coast. Just magnificent.
Right.
So there you are.
So there we go. That's Derry.
So there we are for Derry. Well, I went to visit my niece in London, who's from Derry, who's from that border between the Unionist and the Nationalist, which was a very hard place to grow up in. And we went to see her in London because she was giving a show in Frank's Closet. So my little talk today is about the Tate Museum. So for anybody who doesn't know the Tate Museum is a modern museum that has contemporary art that dates from the 1900s. It was built in the south. It was not built. It was a power station that was turned into a museum in the year 2000, and it opened in May 2000, and it has a lot of international, modern and contemporary art. So they hold exhibitions throughout the year of different artists. Famous artists were there, like Picasso, David Hockney, etc. Oh, there's so many I could be telling you all the time. But I went to visit a particular exhibition, which was about Yoko Ono. Now, do you know who Yoko Ono is?
She was married to leading pop star at the time.
Exactly,
right.
John Lennon.
John
Lennon's wife, yeah. So she's Japanese herself. She's a singer, songwriter, and peace activist who was born in 1930-ish, 33 to be exact, in Tokyo in Japan. And she was born into culture. She loved culture, and she moved a lot between the United States and Japan. So a lot of her famous work was done during this time. She was an avant-gardiste, as we say in French and English, for her time. She did a lot of music. Her art was a little bit particular. It depends what type of art you like, but she was not an artist with really a paintbrush. She was more an artist with, for example, in her exhibition, we could see something that was on the floor that people were supposed to walk on, and that she would use then after. Yeah, so she was quite different. She was quite different, if I can say. So most of her famous works included, and I watched the video while I was there, called cut piece. Now, they didn't use the word cut piece, they used the word striptease. Now, striptease is usually something that we find somewhere else, but here they called it cut piece because she was up on a stage, she was being filmed, and the audience came one by one to cut part of her clothing off. So it was very interesting. And she that was one of her famous pieces where the audience came and cut her clothes away. Particular. I think, though, that we also know her really well because of John Lennon, and she and John Lennon, her deceased husband, they did a lot of bed-ins. Now, their bed-ins were protests against the Vietnam War, for peace and justice, etc. So she advocated for this peace and justice, and there was a very big film on this as well. Very interesting. And of course, if we look at Yoko Ono, she's very active in humanitarian causes. She uses her name to promote peace, feminism, environmentalism, and her influence really go farther than that. She looks at herself, and she is considered, from what I saw this weekend, a pioneer of conceptual art and a key figure in a feminist movement at the time, because back in the 60s, it was difficult to earn your place, you know. Mm-hmm. And she did a lot of sort of quiet or secret in New York, secret exhibitions where people could come and where other artists could be inspired. So it was a very, very interesting. I don't know if she's really my favorite,
sure,
but she was very interesting. But one of my favorites that I did see while I was in the Tate Museum was Richard Hamilton. Did you ever hear of the artist Richard Hamilton?
His name rings a bell. I might be thinking of another Richard Hamilton. Wait, what does he do? What kind of
art? Well, he actually, because we're talking about Derry, that's why I thought of Richard Hamilton just now. Richard Hamilton has a very famous piece of art that was in the exhibition of Capture the Moment with the it wasn't in the exhibition Capture the Moment. It was in the Citizen, the collection. They call that the Citizen collection. And with the Blanket Man. I don't know if you remember the Blanket Men.
No.
Okay, they were a group of people who were imprisoned in the prison in Northern Ireland for different rights with the IRA, etc. So anyway, we won't be able to get into all of that today, but that would be somebody interesting to look at. Okay. Richard Hamilton. Well, listeners, that's all we have for today.
Oh, I've got a pun for today.
Your pun. Give us your pun.
What does a clock do when it's hungry?
I don't know.
Goes back for seconds.
Oh, it goes back for seconds. Oh, that's a nice pun. Thank you, Tim, for sharing that with us today. And don't forget, listeners, if you're looking for a little tip in English today, my tip for today is writing. So if you're an A2, B1 level and you want to improve your writing skills, take something that you have written before in French and put it and translate it into English, but you've got to be careful not to use the same words for your translating. And then find a teacher or send it to me with pleasure, and I will correct it for you and then rewrite it. This will help your writing skills get better and better. Well, I hope you learned a lot today with myself and Tim and expanded your vocabulary. You can listen to this podcast again on 92.1 on YouTube, Radio Grand Lac. And please stay tuned for One Commune, 1 hour, One Commune with Jean-Pierre Santos. Le 16/9e avec Kevin et Guillaume pour l'émission 100% cinéma. And Tim and myself will be back next week for another Your English Weekly. So bye to you from us at you.
Your English Weekly. Your English Weekly. La chronique 100% en anglais de Radio Grand Lac avec Sinead.